What is up, guys? Hope y'all are doing well. Uh, been a while since we've done a Failure Friday. I'm not sure this would classify, but it might end up being one. Looking at the Mi-8, we're in a snowstorm, so low visibility conditions, and what we're going to do, we're going to fly to a couple spots, and we're going to pick up about 8,000 pounds of stuff, and then fly it to a couple different airports. Totally unloaded right now. There's not even hard points or anything, so it's about as light as we can get, and we're going to make it as heavy as we can get, and see if we can survive. Last time, if you were here, I think the last time we flew this, I VRS'd it. Gotten a little bit better since then, so hopefully it's not going to happen today. We'll jump in there and get it started. Actually, before I do, the first airport that we're going to go to, we're going to try to use the Doppler navigation. That little bulb on the bottom is a Doppler radar, and it sends information to a computer in the cockpit that gives you, you set in like a map angle and a distance that you want to fly, and it sort of extrapolates that or interpolates that and then tells you how far off course you are. So we're going to fly the first leg from the pilot navigator side, but I think we're probably going to get things started on this side. So we'll go ahead and get that going. Batteries, standby gen. Rectifiers are, I believe, inverters. An auto position and generators. Definitely need the anti-collision. Fuel valves and fuel pumps. And we can start the APU, which you can see fire up. Wind at ground level shouldn't be too much of a factor, but I know that once we get above 1,000 feet, it's going to be kind of gusty, so I'm interested to see how well we can follow our navigation here. Also well below freezing, so we need to make sure our anti-ice systems are on before we take off. Rotor brake, and we can start engine number 2. Good start on 2, switch that over to the left side, and engine number 1. I like to set the radar altimeter pretty low, so it kind of shows us when we're about to make touchdown. I'll go ahead and turn that on. Here we go, 2 good starts. I'm not going to turn off the APU just yet. In order for the generators to kick on and start working, we need to bring the throttle up to 100% so the RPMs get above 85, which is when the generators take effect. That click was the generators, and you can see over the corner the generator lights are off. We can turn the rest of our systems on here. Don't need a fan actually. So the Doppler, that's our Doppler radar, which is how we're going to be navigating for this first leg. And to figure out precisely what we need to do, turn off the APU first. So we are here, we're going down to, first stop is Novorossiysk. I don't even know how to pronounce that. We're just going to draw a line from our position to there, somewhere thereabouts. So 20 nautical miles, so we need to put that in kilometers, so roughly about 2, so we'll call that 39, 40 kilometers, and a map angle of 204 degrees. So jump back in here. turn this on. Flight path, kilometers. We're going to roll it backwards. We want it to tick down to our destination. So I want to say 40, let's say 39. And the map angle was 204. All right, 204, that is on from our current position. So we'll set our directional gyro to 204. We're going to be doing the navigating from this side for the first leg. Feels weird flying on the right in this helicopter. And this is going to show us a drift angle. Once we get airborne, it's going to show you kilometers an hour and a drift angle based on wind, which we can then use to sort of correct our flight path on the directional gyro. So all we have to do is make sure that this is staying roughly on 0, so we're kind of maintaining that path. Maintain the drift angle so we're not getting too far off course, and it should be fairly easy to find the location, assuming we can see out the windows. I'll go ahead and turn on our stability augmentation system, and I think we are good to go. So the helicopter's shuddering right now because of the wind on the ground then is roughly your ETL speed, which is effective transitional lift. So after a certain amount of airspeeds passing over the rotors, the rotor disc starts to act like an airplane. So we're basically about there, which is good for us. It means it'd be harder to get into vortex ring state. Go ahead and trim for takeoff, so back into the right, and give it a little bit of right pedal. Start bringing in the collective. It is going to be wobbly because it's windy. Oh yeah, nose is already off the ground. And so just imagine doing this with about 8,000 pounds of cargo. Alright, so we're going to keep it on about this angle. There's quite a bit of turbulence here. I know there's some mountains up ahead too, so I want to start climbing here. What up, flying Scotsman? How you doing, Scott? This is bananas. It's about to get even more bananas. You and me both. Alright, so we got about a 10-degree drift angle now, which means that we probably need to bring it to the right about 10 degrees to make sure that we maintain that course. And actually, you see the number on our drift angle in kilometers is kind of increasing there to the left. Nice. Are you actually going to go for your PPL? You got any questions, let me know. Even though I haven't finished my my commercial yet, just because I've been kind of in limbo because of the airplane and the airport situation, I've been working on my CFI notebook and doing lessons and stuff like that, so I've been going pretty heavy into the PPL, PTS. You can always go get one of those, you know, they call them like discovery flights. They're usually cheaper and they take you up for 30 minutes and let you fly for a bit. What have you been going into the study book? $200 for an intro lesson. Well, I mean, if you're considering that it would include flying as well. Oh shit. Icing. Oh, I forgot to turn that on. Let's get the dust covers and oh god. I might have to land here. Pitot. Heating. Battery. Jump over to the pilot side. That was a big mistake. Oh, auto. On. Get back on course. We're mostly on course. I mean, usually depending on what type of airplane you're flying, it could be anywhere from 100 to 175 or more dollars an hour for the airplane, plus usually about 60 or 70 for the instructor. Yeah, here's some practice. What are the proper VFR cruise altitudes? And how do we determine them? Man is right. From 0 to 179 degrees. Magnetic course is what? Odd thousands plus 500. Then if you're going westbound, so if it's 180 to 359 degrees magnetic course, those are even thousands. Plus 500. And then the IFR is the same, just your even thousands without the 500s. Eventually, my memory is bad too, I think, but eventually I think you just get so saturated in it that you remember it kind of anyway. I mean, for example, doing those CFI lessons, I haven't really been studying for my commercial oral exam, but then going through it, you just realize how much stuff is just kind of stuck in there now with you. I don't know, man. My memory is never good, which means that when I get older, it's going to be just a complete disaster. So we're getting a little bit off course to the right. So we're almost a kilometer off course to the right, so we're going to kind of correct with that. I like John Fly, and I guess he has a real pilot's license too, but you wouldn't know it by watching his videos. No offense. Nice guy, I like his videos. Although to be fair, half the time the stuff that I'm doing in simulators is kind of the same way. He is a good egg. It's also, I mean, you know, generally speaking, if you're flying a bunch in real life, I don't want to come home and do the same thing. Which is part of the reason I've gotten so into DCS recently. So I'm guessing the icing is under control. We still have airspeed. Temperature is about minus 12. Flying a 747 with no nom. Well, I mean, to be fair, I don't really know how to fly a 747. We kind of just ballpark it. Speaking of ballparking, I think we were in the ballpark of our first stop here. This is where we're going to pick up the heaviest load. It's down by this bay. There's a soccer stadium somewhere down here that we got to land in. That's a long flight, man. 700 miles. I'm too ADD for that. Dude, this kind of stuff is good. The landing in a helicopter is the fun part. Just fly for about 40 kilometers, land, pick some stuff up, and then go to the next one in a snowstorm. So this landing might be a little hairy. We're looking for a soccer stadium somewhere over here. $180 during what part of flight? I mean, that's pretty low. In what? Yeah, that's going to take you about forever to get there. 700 miles at 180 nautical miles an hour. Alright, looking for a soccer stadium. And I should probably start slowing down. Also, we might be able to watch some replays today, because I found that the DCS replays kind of work when there's no other vehicles and stuff in motion. I didn't put any in this mission, so... I think the sim's already kind of bananas. Although, to be honest, I haven't played it in a while, so I don't know where they're at. I just want to see the avionics get a decent patch. Alright, guys. Soccer stadium? Oh, shit, it's right there. Might have to circle on this one. Yeah, we are not going to be able to slow it down. I'm going to try that again. Well, I guess you could hand fly it, but I don't know if anyone in the history... Well, I mean, I guess people when they're maybe practicing or something, you might fly IFR, but I don't know how many times that's happened in a 747. Or VFR, I mean. So the key to keeping it above vortex ring state is to make sure that you're around 200 feet per minute, or I guess that's 200 meters per second in here, descent, and above ETL. So now we're below ETL because that's what the shaking was, so we need to be careful on the descent rate. Swing it into the wind here. It's a little tricky with the wind. It feels like it keeps picking me up. There we go. Now loaded, I have to open the cargo doors. Watch this thing sink down when it gets stuck in there. There we go. Close her up. And I'm going to go back into the pilot seat. Feels better. And we're going to navigate a little bit differently this time. So I need to find a radio frequency from down here is where we're going. Can use 1000 kilohertz, and we'll use the Arc 9. 1000, turn that on compass. B is active, and good, we got a deflection on the needle. Sync that up. Well, that's the direction we gotta go. So this is gonna be a little bit interesting. Yeah, I mean, the economy here is doing better than I think relatively a few other states because we're kind of out of full shutdown mode. But I know that it's obviously still hurting. What did he do? What was his job? Also, someplace to look down here right now, down here in the bottom left corner. I'm not really sure what that stands for, but it seems to be kind of your torque. Because when we're near the bottom of that red mark, you can see on the ITT there, it's going to jump up. So it'll be interesting to see how well we get off the ground here for this one now that we had 8,000 pounds on board. And go ahead and start pulling in some collective. Total computer, well, at least he has like a marketable job. That kind of job's never going anywhere, you know what I mean? Oh, yeah. She got off the ground. And there's that shake, so we're getting into ETL. I think the real issue is going to be slowing it down and landing without VRS. You drove it off the lot and the engine warning came on. Is it a new car? Oh, I gotcha. Well, easy solution. Did you figure out what the problem was yourself, or did you actually end up going back to the dealership? Oh, they fixed it. Yeah, actually, I've been out of the States for the last 10 years, so it's been a long time since I had to deal with a car. And I just went and got my emissions tested, and that was one of the things that they do, is test the steel on the gas cap, which is, I guess, one of the primary things that they're looking for, which is weird. Turn around, hit the stop sign, turn right back around. I'm back. On the highway or on the interstate? Just hit one of those ramps, turning right back around. Sucks though, I hate dealing with that kind of crap. That's why you need checklists. I mean, those car dealerships don't have their own sort of pre-sale checklists. So here's a question for you. I don't know if you read about this in your PPL study guide. When we have freezing on the pitot tube, what would happen in terms of cockpit indications? How would we know? Yeah, basically. If the pitot tube, if just the ram air inlet was blocked, the airspeed would read 0. And if both the ram air inlet and the drain tube was blocked with ice, then it would act like an altimeter. It would freeze at that airspeed, and if you climbed as the pressure dropped, that little wafer inside would expand and then show your airspeed increasing. And if you descended, it would decrease. It seems like everything's working fine though, so hopefully I got the anti-ice and stuff on at the appropriate time. Alright, I think the airport is coming up here, so I'm going to start slowing down. Land near the trucks, southwest ramp, offload the supplies. I say that jokingly a lot when I'm flying airplanes, or jets, I mean. On takeoff, it's like mixture rich, props full fine. Might actually land on the runway. Just tell him you're joking. Then he would have appreciated the humor. So I think no matter what, we're going to have a tailwind here, or a crosswind. I'll just do a J-turn. So we're going to land down there on this ramp that's nearest to us. Yeah, that's right. As far as I understand, on the King Airs, they only run it at high idle shortly after they get the engine started to basically let the generators recharge the battery. I think flight deck, if it's not flight deck to sim, it's the Airbus guy. A1 simulations. I know one of those guys flew King Airs for a while. Alright, the airspeed or the vertical speed's dropping pretty quick here. Not a good situation. It is a very difficult or different plane, but I mean the principles going from complex airplanes in general to just more complex, it's not too bad. I mean, just you're adding a few more. I mean, going from example piston to turbine, most of the procedure is the same. Oh shit. No, no. I'm gonna use the taxiway. We're gonna land this thing like a runway. It's just so heavy right now. I don't want to get it in VRS because I'm not gonna be able to save it. Well, looks like we landed pretty hard there, boys. Assuming those skid marks are from me. We want to drop about 1,000 kilograms off here. Maybe I thought I forgot to, or I thought I remembered to turn the brakes off. That would be a cool helicopter to have in the game. The Mi-26. This one only has a parking brake, because you can kind of control your speed with the rotor as well as with the collective. So for example, if I want to slow it down, I would lower the collective to make it sit heavier on the ground, because right now it's kind of, I don't know, maybe about 5-10 degrees up, just to take some of the weight off the main gear. And I've got a little bit of aft pressure on the cyclic just to keep it from going too fast. So here's where we got to park. Well, this thing, I mean, the drag, it's kind of just brute forces it through there, doesn't it? I mean, it looks like a loaf of bread. It's not exactly the most aerodynamic thing in the world. Open the door. And park and brake. I used to think it was hideous, but now I'm kind of weirdly obsessed with it. Like, it's so ugly that it's pretty. It's definitely a beast, though. There we go. She's done. We gotta go to Anapa Viziazevo, which is up here. Doc Scotty. Hey, buddy, welcome. Fine, up here. We'll use one of these NDBs, 443 kilohertz. .440, and then you gotta use this guy. Roll in a 3, and our signal just went up there, and it should be pointing to the north. Which it is, so that is us. We're gonna go that way. The other cool thing is, because it has such a huge payload, I mean, even when you have the extra armor on, which is probably about maybe 500 kilograms, about 1,200 pounds, there's still so much it can carry, like rockets, bombs, gun pods, and all that kind of stuff. It makes it pretty diverse usage in combat. And our parking brake's on. We'll just take off from here, because I think the wind is blowing from that direction anyway. Parking brake, and we're pretty much trimmed for takeoff anyway. KFRG, where is that? Oh, yeah, Farmingdale. Yeah, I think I remember you talking about Farmingdale. Yeah, but even some of the plane airports in Flight Simulator, because the scenery is loading in real time and what you'd kind of see in real life, it makes it interesting. It's not like an X-plane where I would want to have an airport scenery, because most of the flight looked like, I don't know, glow-in-the-dark vomit. So because the textures were so bland, you wanted to have your departure and your arrival point look pretty interesting, but now it's not too big of a deal. Alright, that was the hardest landing that we had to accomplish today. That was the one that I most expected to have VRS. I don't know if I would have been able to land like vertical out of ground effect, but we're alive. I'll tell you what airport has a really cool restaurant. I mean, not that I've been to a whole bunch of them, but in Peachtree DeKalb down here, it's called the Downwind. That is really good. When I was in college, I lived right across the street. We used to go down there on Fridays. They had a patio that overlooks one of the runways, so you can watch planes take off and land. But I didn't remember what the food was like because it had been so long. And then I think my girlfriend was visiting back in February, and we went down there. Nice. Food's really good. They have drinks. It's a cool atmosphere. A lot of like paraphernalia, flying stuff, pictures and airplanes and stuff on the walls. There's also the airport that was in one of the Matt Guthmiller's videos. I can't remember what state it's in, but I think the ICAO is BQ1, where there's like a barbecue restaurant in there. It's definitely somewhere on the East Coast. Like, I want to say it's in one of the Carolinas. Yeah, dude, hit me up. Well, I mean, I guess like Long Island itself, there's not, I mean, it seems like general aviation would be harder to do there just because proximity to dense urban centers and stuff, and probably cost. That's kind of surprising. I would expect Montauk, where there's tons of wealthy people, to have a pretty decent airport facility or FBO or something. The F-18 or the F-14? Well, what experience do you have with airplanes, and what are you looking for? Personally, the F-14 is my favorite, but it's a hard airplane to fly. Even with the stability augmentation system, it requires quite a bit of finesse, which is one of the cool things I think about it. But the F-18, if you don't have like a lot of familiarity with airplanes and air systems and stuff like that, it holds your hand pretty well with the flight system because it kind of fly-by-wire and it interprets what you want it to do, whereas the F-14 doesn't. F-14 is also way more powerful, it's faster, has longer range, but obviously the avionics and stuff are pretty dated. Looks way cooler though, in my opinion. That's my favorite airplane, in real life and in DCS. But the F-18 can do so many different things really well too. I mean, the ground attack stuff is really good. There's laser-guided missiles, bombs, GPS bombs. That I mean, I guess some of the F-14 has that stuff, but I don't really know how to use it. Oh yeah, I heard they updated Japan. That was supposed to look pretty good, eh? I'm gonna check that out. I went to Japan a few years ago for the Formula One race, which was in Suzuka, so I didn't really get to travel around much. To be honest, I think probably the front seat, because you're not really you're flying the plane and you're working with the airplane systems. You kind of pull the trigger on the weapons. So as long as you can figure out how to work Jester, which is fairly intuitive, it has like a good UI menu, then it's doable. I've never really been compelled to learn the back seat, so I don't really know, but it seems like there's a lot of buttons back there. And the cool thing is, if you actually get a real human to Rio for you, that is a pretty satisfying experience. One of my friends has it, and he doesn't like the F-14. He doesn't particularly like flying it, but he likes doing the Rio, and he's good at it. And it's way more fun than using the Jester AI. So the sim is free, and it comes with the SU-33, the SU-25, and a TF-51, which is like the trainer version of the Mustang. And of course this map, which is the Caucasus, so like Georgia and Russia. And if you want other maps and different airplanes and stuff, those are all payware. And they're generally pretty expensive, but if you wait for the sales, you can get them for probably cheaper than you can a lot of decent, you know, civil flight sim planes. Like I bought the Super Carrier and the F-18 for like $40. You could do that, but I think you'd probably have to do it predominantly online, because I'm not really sure how well the AI pilot works. I know there's like Iceman AI, which is kind of the equivalent to Jester, so you can tell them what to do, but I'm not really sure how that works. Yeah, so do you know how to access the asteroid thing? I know that the game is in the computer back there, but I have no idea how to do it. I've probably spent a grand total of about 5 minutes back there, and it was just doing one of the training missions where it was trying to get you to do the startup procedure, and I was like, fuck this. I'm gonna get back in the front seat. See ya. The view is better back there, though. The bars around the front side of the pilot's window, pretty restrictive. I don't know, guys, what do you think? Ugly or pretty? Alright, this landing could be a bit tricky too, because I think there's still 25 or 2,600 kilograms back there, which is over 5,000 pounds. It's more than most airplanes weigh. GA. Cal Dan, you son of a gun. Haven't seen you in a minute. How you been? How's law school treating you? You done yet? One more semester. You started already? Are you in it? Or are you talking about next year? Like you end in the summer? Are you staying in California? I'll say one thing that pretty much all my friends from college, they were like English and philosophy majors. They all went and did law of different kinds. Most of them criminal defense. Cal Dan, same thing. If I ever got in trouble, I'm gonna have a huge pool of lawyers to choose from. How's the weather there? You still having like smoke and stuff from those fires? Or does it depend on what the wind is doing? Lawyer bro T, yeah, it depends on what state I get in trouble in, I guess. Yeah, since you was running, I figured it must have gotten a little bit better if you're outside doing that kind of physical activity. I was gonna say, I don't know if I could deal with California weather because I like having, 4 distinct seasons and I like having a cool winter, but I guess you're from Florida, so it doesn't matter anyway. You need to hurry up and get done, start your law practice so you guys can buy an airplane, hire me to fly for you. Nowhere else is hiring at the moment. I know, man. I was so excited when I got the absolute most perfect time to get into aviation with all the people retiring and all the jobs that were opening up. It was looking really good, and now just a few months, nothing's left. And I feel like I'm pot committed, I gotta finish it, I gotta go. I gotta do it. I have a job offer as a flight instructor, but I was hoping I would be able to avoid it somehow, but just nowhere's hiring. What are job opportunities looking like for lawyers? I mean, I guess you guys can kind of make your own opportunities, can't you? It's not like the demand for lawyers is ever going to go away. Yeah, I've been working on my flight instructor lessons, and I'm just kind of bullet pointing all the stuff, and I kind of feel like I have an idea of how and what to do teaching-wise, just because we did it for so long. That's definitely a benefit. Yeah, if you want to drop a link for me, that'd be good. What's the bar like? I don't really know that I've talked to anyone explicitly about their experience with it. In what way? And then, so if you take it in California, you pretty much are locked into staying in California too, right? If you move to a different state, you'd have to take it in that state as well, wouldn't you? Oh yeah, I hear you. So it's basically just to see how well you can take a test. Cram for it, knowing a bunch of stuff that you're not going to need to memorize later, and you can't use resources that you would in real life. So what do they do now that it's remote? How can they determine whether or not you're using those resources? Like if your answers are too good? I don't know, boys. He answered this question too thoroughly. I think he was using a book. Like what? By the way, I don't even know if I'm going the right way. Are we close to this freaking airport? Yeah, we're in the ballpark. Boom! Thanks, Doc. Appreciate you. Next time I stream with the F-14, I'll jump back there and see if we can get it to work. Do you know what it's going to be like in California? Have you talked to anybody who's taken it recently? Hopefully, knock on wood, but hopefully by the time that you get to June to take the test, I mean, some of those restrictions will be eased up on. I can't imagine this thing's still going to be going full bore like this forever. I'm so sick of it, but personally, I mean, it hasn't really, other than obviously the job market, at least where I rent airplanes and fly out of it and stuff, they don't require you to wear a mask. The only time I have to wear one and deal with that kind of shit is like when I'm going to the grocery store. They passed, you know? Are you nervous about it already? A couple of months. The way you take the test and you have to wait a couple months to see if you even pass it. Oof. I feel you on that one, though. Even thinking about the tests and stuff that I have coming up, it makes my stomach feel awful. What does that mean? Like if you have a diploma, you automatically get the privileges of exercising law. It kind of seems like it should be like that in the first place, you know what I mean? I don't know. I don't know enough about law school to say one way or another, but it seems like if you passed, or maybe if you pass with a certain, GPA or something like that, it obviously means you can find your references in your books when you need to, and you can pull that information out as you need it. Plus, if you're a shitty lawyer, no one's going to hire you, so the system kind of takes care of itself in that way, right? I kind of feel the same way about flying. Like, they have what's called DPEs, which are FAA-approved designated pilot examiners, and you have to pay them $500 to even take the test. And it just seems like, shouldn't your instructor be able to evaluate whether or not you should get, I don't know. Patrol officer. Kind of a dangerous time to go into that, eh? I'd be afraid to be a cop right now, man. Good for you, though. Somebody's got to do it. I feel like the wind is getting worse here. Yeah, exactly. Particularly anything that's sort of regulated and dominated by federal guidelines. Ugh. Well, Doc, like I said, good for you, man. Somebody's got to do it. Thank you preemptively for your service. Yeah, that's one of the things that trips me out about the people who are like, defund the police. Like, if you want better cops, the way to get there is not by defunding them, unfortunately. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're gonna make some real shit cops now. What we want is better accountability and less training. Like, how the hell is that supposed to work out? Yeah, man. I think we're near the airport. That looks like one of the NDB sites. So probably she's up here. I think we might have got lost, boys. If I can put that on our 6 o'clock, that should be roughly our approach course. Any boys see an aircraft carrier around here? Doing with fuel. 1/3 of a tank. So we're definitely below VFR weather conditions, and they should have a beacon on during the daylight. Not seeing that. Yeah, man. Good talking to you. Have fun in your class. Where the hell am I? Oh, I went to the north. I'm gonna have to refuel there. Peace! So both the NDBs on the approach end and the departure end have the same frequencies. So I'm not sure how it chooses which one that it latches onto. I can find the airport, I think this time we're going to try vertical landing out of ground effect. So a helicopter type landing. Alright, so we're just passing that NDB somewhere there to 9 o'clock. It's rotating around behind us. It should be somewhere off the nose. There is like a mod that you can buy for this, so you get the Garmin 430, the GPS thing, which would be kind of nice. But I kind of like generally navigating like this, but I wish that there was some sort of beacon that we could use. Like, there's no tack hand navigation, and just like VOR or anything like that. Where the hell is this airport? We're gonna have to throw some gas in there when we get there. He's back. Yeah, the hard thing about Twitch on your phone is that once you get it on there, like, to type in the keyboard and see the chat and stuff, it makes the screen really small. Now it's somehow to our north. This is super frustrating. I'm running out of gas if I can't find this thing. More north. I've got one for flying, but I never use it for anything other than, like, I've never used it outside of an airplane, I don't think. Oh, hey, that's us. I think those are the bunkers where the airplanes are stored. We're gonna live. We're still gonna have to find one more after this, though. The way that they connect, if they do connect, is either Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. But the Wi-Fi doesn't give you information like you would get like internet or anything. It just gives you flight data like traffic and weather. Alright, looking for some cargo planes. Oh, there we go, they're on that side, the north ramp. Yeah, you get access to your charts. Those I download, so you have access to them all the time, but I use it primarily because it logs your flight for you, so it automatically puts it into a digital logbook that has all the flight information, like your altitudes and speeds and stuff, and it gives you weather and traffic. So I know some of the airplanes I fly don't have ADS-B out, so there's no or ADS-B in, I mean. How that works. It doesn't give us traffic on a display in the cockpit, so I kind of augment that by using the iPad. I also get real pissed when other planes don't have ADS-B out. It's really hard to keep the vertical descent rate here below 500 with the wind. You might have to land this one like an airplane too. Some do, but I think most of it, you know, like you get some rudimentary Wi-Fi now on commercial airplanes, and I know that some have Wi-Fi that allows text messaging. Let's slow her down. We're leaving ATL. Be careful with the vertical speed here. And we're going to J-hook it. Hopefully not crash. This is hard in wind, man. I can't, if you have an iPhone, you can, but most of the software that's out there is for iPhone and Apple products. I know that Garmin has some program, and I tried using it, I could never get it to work, so... I mean, everyone that I know just uses ForeFlight, which is what I use, and that's iPhone and iOS devices. Oh boy, almost had a VRS scare.
Отказал второй генератор. Отказал второй генератор.
Thanks, dude.
Отказал первый генератор. Отказал первый генератор.
That was a frustrating landing. Parking brakes, open the door, and I'm gonna throw some fuel in there. Not sure that stopped the refueling. Oh, refueling complete. Good, we're good to go. Let's get a frequency for that other airport in GTFO. Go 803 megahertz. Well, if it's diving on your autopilot engagement, just turn the autopilot off. Problem solved. Let's get a distance too. I'll put the distance on the Doppler. F10. About 54 kilometers. Have they changed anything with the avionics yet? Like I said, I haven't played it in a while. The wind is going to town, jeez. Man, let's get a map angle too. Do we have one of those? 92 degrees. That's what I'm waiting for. I want to do some IFR stuff. There we go. Done. Just get a little trim action. We should be good. I mean, now there's no weight in the back, and I've only got half a tank of gas, so bye! I want like some of the good old, like the Navajo PA-31, a good turbo piston, twin engine. The jets are good, but unless they change anything with the flight models, I know that the longitude that's in there, it feels really weird when it gets at low speeds. You pretty much have to fly it at 150 knots all the way to touchdown, or just, you know, it's going to sink on you, which is ridiculous. It'd be easy fix. Also, I know someone was telling me that they're working on kind of like a Zebo version mod of the, oh, what is it, the Citation? The guy's editing some of the, I guess, like the criteria for the flight model to make it behave more like the real airplane. I wouldn't have the slightest idea where to start with something like that, but I'm glad that he is, or somebody is. Palm Springs, yeah, that area is always one of my favorite to fly to in X-Plane with Ortho. Palm Springs, 29 Palms, that whole area in Southern California is pretty cool. It would also be cool if they worked on some of the water mapping, so in places like, for example, the Bahamas, rather than having that same water color right up to the shore, you get some of those lighter blue colors like you actually see in shallow waters around those areas. Because the Bahamas has been kind of I wouldn't say disappointing, but it wasn't quite up to what I expected. And I was excited to fly there too, because I know it's one of those places that Steve-O is made kind of famous for flying. Something else about this helicopter, it has, which I should have turned on, but we don't really need it because we're not inside the actual thing, but in the helicopter, let me jump over here into the engineer seat, it has a kerosene-powered combust heater. So put this on auto. And we'll do full rate, fan, and start. Switch that to... So if you look at the outside of the helicopter, this side, that fuel pylon or whatever, is longer than the left side. That whole front part is a kerosene tank that is run specifically for the heater. So unlike most turbine aircraft that uses bleed air from the engines to heat the inside, this has its own combust heater. Whenever it turns on, some red fluid or smoke comes out of the bottom. I don't know what it is. I mean, as far as I knew, kerosene was clear. Once it stops priming and starts heating, you'll be able to see it. This is such a weird helicopter. Yeah, the reason that they do that, I mean, we don't do it, and it's not imperative, but one of the reasons that you do it is to make sure that the gauges don't stick. Sometimes when they're really cold, like once I was flying out of Asheville, I flew there in like January or February or something, and we were leaving at like 9 or 10 o'clock, so it was well below freezing, and we got in, and one of the first things that you look for when you start the engine is the or the oil pressure to come up, and it didn't move at all, so I thought there might have been a problem with the engine. I just flicked the gauge a couple times, and then it spun up. If you had a hangar or something, you'd just probably preheat it in there. Plus, it would be nice just for cabin comfort because, you know, the lapse rate for temperature is 2 degrees Celsius or 3.5 degrees Fahrenheit per 1,000 feet. So if your temperature on the ground is, you know, that is below freezing, so I don't know, 25 degrees Fahrenheit. Once you get up another 4,000 or 5,000 feet above that, you're over 12 degrees colder. Not comfortable. And the way that the cabin heat and those in most piston planes work, it takes there's a shroud around the exhaust manifold, so it takes hot air out of that and it just blows it into the cabin, which is good, but if you have any sort of crack in the exhaust system, you can get carbon monoxide. So every time you're using it, you're like, am I going to die? Am I going to die? Oh, yeah. I think I flew to Juneau. Yeah, I flew to Juneau in FS 2020. That's right, they don't have the lead-in lights there. Guy with the tie, welcome, my dude. Alright, the combust heater's on. So look at that. I don't know if that's a liquid or if it's supposed to be a smoke. What is that? Kerosene's not red, right? I'm not making that up. According to our Doppler navigator over there, we're 2 kilometers left of course. Because jet fuel is basically kerosene, and I know jet fuel is clear. Also smells real good. Is that weird? Did we win yet? Yeah, so far. I mean, we've done the hardest part. I'm just flying back to home base. A little weird. But jet fuel smells good. How you doing, Keep? How's things in South Africa? Y'all getting warmer down there? Time for safari again soon. Well, I can't remember what time of year you do your little walkabouts. No, I feel you. We're on the same page there. If I started complaining, we'd be here all day. Oh, she getting windy though. Jeez. You going anywhere special or the same spot? Name one thing that COVID didn't mess up. lost again here, geez. Debt, that's true. Yeah, a lot of people, debt collectors doing good business. Three miles or 3 kilometers left of course, 17 kilometers to go. It still feels weird to think about it, that now it's just like a fact that you lived with, that there was a global pandemic that kind of ruined everything. At the beginning it felt so weird and foreign, and now it's like, oh yeah, you know, coronavirus. Maybe, there might be. I haven't really had a look. Doesn't look like it. That is one of the cool things about Flight Sim 2020, though, is that if the Street View, or however they do that, if the info is, I guess, high-res enough, granular enough, you can actually recognize logos and stuff on buildings. Oh, Keeper, dude, I'm 100% with you. 100%. I mean, it's not even a conspiratorial thing to me. As I'm looking at the death rates, the way that is reported, which sort of adds or contributes to hysteria, is in cases. And cases is not a valid way to determine or assess the relative danger of a virus. Right, particularly the way that testing is done with PCR tests and stuff like that. You could be positive and not have any symptoms and just go about your life and maybe stay in quarantine for a little while. The real thing is death rate, and death rate is now, even in the high-risk groups, is above or around 95%. For someone my age, it's over 99.7%. So the idea of shutting down the economy, which then leads to a number of secondary consequences like drug and alcohol abuse, depression, spousal child abuse, all those things, it compounds these and makes the issues far worse. And those are issues that probably aren't going to be tracked, and the statistics aren't going to be known for years, if not decades, if they even let them out in the first place. And like you said, now if there was actually a serious... Oh, I think we found the airport. If there was actually a serious disease, I mean, myself, I'd be like, fuck no, I'm not locking down again, bruh. I don't even think that's a political statement. I think it's sad that it's gotten there. I mean, take precautions, but the idea that we're going to mandatory lockdown for businesses, destroying businesses, and then pretend like it was somehow, oh, I can't believe the economy's doing so bad. Well, how did this possibly happen? Because you shut everything down, dipshit. And rant over. See if we can. I'm gonna do a hook turn here. The landing is right off our nose, right there, that little square spot. No VRS, please. Oh shit, we lost the generator. Come on, we didn't even get it out of 85%.
Отказал первый генератор. Отказал первый генератор.
Same thing here, basically. Same with flu and pneumonia. Like, weird. Wonder how that happened. The worst part is that, I mean, just questioning any of this automatically gets you labeled a conspiracy theorist or some sort of like hate monger or something like that. It's insane. People are dumb, dude. I think that's the bottom line, is that most people are just fucking idiots. Alright, we got all this stuff turned on. We turn that down. Century 21 is closing down. That's the generators. We're fine with that. We don't need those guys. And cut you bad boys. I doubt in real life they would actually turn off all these circuit breakers, because you'd have to go manually and click every single one of those things, which Lord knows I ain't gonna do. We'll go over here. Turn the generators off. Inverters. Anti-collision and batteries. And rotor brake. The crazy thing is the way that they're still scaring people about it, still framing everything in terms of this rise in the number of cases. While, like, I have a friend who was tested positive for coronavirus. He stayed at home for 2 weeks, didn't have a cough, didn't have a sniffle or anything, right? And he's counted as a case. So when people say, oh, there's, 2,000 new cases of it every day, that's what you think of as someone who's in a severe condition in a hospital or something, when most of them are like that guy. And all the businesses are still closed. People are still losing their jobs, which is then going to take months, if not years, to continue to recover. So the longer that we continue to close these things or to keep them closed, the worse it's going to be in terms of an economic recovery. So again, prolonging the effects of those issues that we're talking about, like depression, alcoholism, and drug abuse, and all that kind of stuff. Unintended consequences of bad policy. Dude, that makes me so mad. Anyway, we landed, and I think we're going to be able to maybe watch a replay or two. So let me see if I can save a track. First couple landings are a little iffy. I wish this had the same sort of replay system that X-Plane did. That one was, I think, one of the strong points of X-Plane, in spite of all of its other flaws. Now see, that question, that's the one that's going to get me in trouble. Because, I mean, I have a strong opinion about that, but I'm not going to even go into that on stream. Let's go see. But, nah, I'm not even going to say it. You guys could guess, but, man. I will say that, look, it's... the trade deal with China and stuff like that, you can say what you want about it, but China had been in a poor place economically for, at that point, years. I mean, they'd been devaluing their own currency simply to compete with Western countries. The only reason they were surviving was basically the trade imbalances that we had. And it's striking that at a moment when we just signed this new trade deal, essentially, with China, which would re-leverage our position in the world, all of a sudden, basically through a failure and incompetence, this virus was unleashed on the world, which had it had the effect of causing a global economic reset. Whether or not that was intentional is up for debate, but I think the coincidence is very strong. And I'll leave it at that. Keeper also 100% agree. And it sounds so cynical, and it is, but the reality is, I don't really know how else to see it. You know what I mean? Because in spite of what everyone wants to say and think about it, it was, from the very beginning, it was politicized. And, again, so like during the debate, the vice presidential debate the other night, I don't know if you guys watched that. It's probably not much of an interest to South Africans, but pretending like the economy is this really big issue and saying, hey guys, it's the Trump administration's fault for X, Y, and Z, when the reality is the economy is hurting because of our response to the coronavirus, the way that we shut things down, and who by and large were proponents of and responsible for that response. I'm super cynical now. Politics is such a fucking joke, dude. I hate talking about it. I mean, I've tried to avoid talking about it, because why would you tune into a flight simulator stream or YouTube channel if you're going to hear someone ranting and raving about something that pisses you off? But I don't know. I can't keep my mouth shut. Good thing I'm not drinking. Man, I'd be ranting like crazy. Take off, bitch. Yeah, and again, think about politically the people who were making such a huge stink about pushing for testing. What does testing do? I mean, in cases where you're going to need to be exposed to and in contact with other people, it can help you understand whether or not you're going to be transmitting that, yes. But now every person who gets a sniffle goes and gets a test. And if a certain percentage of those tests come back with false positives, or in one of those cases, for example, where you're asymptomatic, it's just creating hysteria. Because the higher that number goes, that's a number that the media predominantly leads their stories with, right? We take off, we're just going to sit here. Getting light. And that's, I think, a conservative number. I mean, the person who made the PCR test, which is one of the predominant ways that we're diagnosing this, said himself, because it's an RNA test, depending on how, I think we touched a tail there. Depending on how it's interpreted in a lab, you can find whatever you want. Exactly. Now, for example, here, my mom has a friend. She tested negative, but she's having symptoms. And her husband, no, it's the other way. Her husband tested positive, but he's not having symptoms. She's testing negative, but she has lost her sense of smell and taste. So one of the things that happens with these replays is that, particularly when there's other vehicles and stuff that are moving around, it kind of throws the track off, so I might not even land in the stadium here. We'll see. I wonder if, when I upload this to YouTube, if it's going to be tagged by YouTube for, false information about coronavirus. The mission was to fly up to the soccer stadium, land in there, and we had to pick up, I think, about 3,600 kilograms of stuff, and then take it to different airports. But I was navigating using a Doppler thing on the back of the helicopter, and I don't care. I don't make any money off there anyway, so what are they going to do? Demonetize me? Remove my video? No one watches anyway. Yeah, I don't care. I think the funny thing, when I was in Korea, I told a couple of my students, because the last couple years I worked at an elementary school, and the boys were really interested in airplanes and stuff like that. So I told a couple of them about it. So sometimes they'll still leave comments in Korean. It's me circling, just trying to slow down. Also, because the wind is so variable, I wonder if that's going to throw the track off too. So I'd be surprised if this thing actually makes it into the stadium. is such an ugly helicopter. No. No, what I do, I use the throttle for the collective, and then the joystick obviously is just like the cyclic. And in this helicopter, because it has condition levers, I just use page up and page down for the actual throttle. And then you basically just go full throttle, and then the governor takes over. So it's kind of like the Huey in that way. It would be almost impossible if the helicopter didn't have a governor, though. Alright, first landing was like right on the money, so maybe the track will stay normal. Easy, easy. Yeah, the cyclic for roll and pitch, and then you get your yaw with the rudder pedals, or the anti-torque pedals. Plus the way the trim works on at least this one in the Huey, it's a force trim system, so you hold the button and you move the cyclic where you want it, and when you release the button, it holds the cyclic in that position. So it's a little bit easier to trim than an airplane. No, so you do that with the collective. The collective changes the pitch angle of the blades, so it increases lift and torque. And when you lower the collective, it decreases the pitch angle, which reduces the lift. Go on, get, boy. Yeah, the throttle would, I mean, if it wasn't for the governor, you would have to adjust the throttle depending on what collective setting that you had. Because obviously when you increase the collective, you would need more throttle because it's taking a bigger bite out of the air and creating more torque, which would slow the RPM down, which you can actually kind of hear right there as you get airborne. You can hear it bog down a little bit, but the governor takes care of that. Bye! This helicopter has an interesting system with condition levers. So if you, like in that situation, if I couldn't get off the ground because I was too heavy, you could increase the condition levers. Oh yeah, good luck finding this place, eh? Increase the condition levers, which would give you more power, but it disengages the governor. So once you got it airborne, you'd have to reduce or return the condition levers to normal, and then reset the governor. The tail rotor keeps it from spinning, but so for example, like when you have higher collective settings, when there's more torque, that torque is felt opposite the way that the blades are turning. So, you know, these ones in a Russian helicopter, they turn, shit, which way is it? Clockwise, I think? Or no, it's counterclockwise. I don't know, whichever way, you have to use right pedal to keep the helicopter from spinning. But then as you get into what's called effective transitional lift, when you start to move forward and you're above a certain speed, the rotor blade, the rotor disc starts to act like an airfoil, so it creates its own lifts, and then the airflow kind of the weather vanes the helicopter, so you don't need so much rudder pedal when you're flying. It's just when you're at low power settings, lower speed, or high power settings and low speed. That is one of the weird things, like in the Russian helicopters, the rotor blades turn the opposite way that they do with American helicopters. So when you increase the collective on a Russian helicopter, you use right pedal and right back stick. And on an American helicopter, it would be the opposite. So it feels weird going back and forth between the Huey and this one. There she is. Yeah, honestly, I kind of like flying helicopters more than airplanes because it's just there's always something that's going on. There's not really an autopilot system. I mean, you can cheat and you can hand it over to your co-pilot in these games, so you can operate some of the weapon systems, but it's not like it is flying an airplane. I'll also say that flying helicopters in Flight Simulator may be better at flying airplanes in real life because the hardest thing I think is coordinating flight inputs with the rudder pedals because it's such a counterintuitive thing to do to be steering with your feet. And because there's so much of it in helicopters that now when I get into an airplane, it's not even something that I think about. With some helicopters you can. I know that the Huey has a nav radio. This one you can use FM and homing, but I don't think that you can use. There's no TACAN, and as far as I know, there's no nav radio. So basically, I navigate with NDBs and homing frequencies, FM homing frequencies. This was the ugly landing where I kind of skidded on the ground for a while. In fact, I think I need to move the camera down this way. The Huey, though, you can do like full ILSs. It has, on the CDI, it has your vertical and lateral deflection needles and stuff. And it works the exact same way. I didn't know that for a long time, and I think when I was doing my complex airplane stuff, I was doing practice landings at an airport, and there was a Black Hawk that was on an ILS approach. Yeah, particularly with this weight, I mean, 8,000 pounds, I wouldn't have tried to do a vertical landing. I'd have just landed like an airplane. Which is what I did, it just wasn't very pretty. YOLO! It wasn't so bad. Oh god. Yeah, I definitely wouldn't have flown this helicopter in these conditions in real life. There's no way you can do an instrument approach. Probably 3-mile visibility. No bueno. I'm excited. The people that made, I don't know if it's the same company. I know Eagle Dynamics who made the F-18. They're doing the Hind, the Mi-24. That's gonna be sweet. Yeah, what were the visibility? What was the visibility like? Because I know that for a lot of commercial operations, they're not even allowed to begin an approach if the ATIS or the weather says that they're below minimums for the approach. I don't know, that's one of the questions that I almost got tricked on my instrument oral exam. Bye! Ceiling was 500, so I think they only have, I don't even think they have an ILS there, right? So your minimums are going to be probably 500. I'm 99% sure Aspen does not have... Shit, what did I just do? Don't have an ILS there. See if we can even find the other airport that I landed at. RNAV only. Yeah, so usually those have a higher minimum unless, you know, if they're a, what do you call it, a WAS, Wide Area Augmentation Service. If you got, some of those have near localizer, or not localizer, but ILS localizer minimums. I don't know where the airport is. Well, we'll just stick with that today. Plus, in there, in instrument conditions, I know that they only land, I think, 1/8. Is that what it is, to the south? So you're doing that approach where you're basically dive and driving it, and yeah, if you're, I imagine, I can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but I would guess that the minimums there would be a lot higher than normal. Because you basically have to get the plane configured with all your flaps and your gear out before you start your descent, because the approach angle is so steep. So localizer DME is a non-precision approach. So usually you're going to have much higher minimums for that, because it uses a localizer, and you use, you know, it might be a DME arc or something like that, but a localizer is there's no vertical component, it's only horizontal navigational signal. Is it a localizer DME or is it an LGA? Actually, I'll pull it up on my screen here. Well, that's let me see if I can get a YouTube, not a YouTube, Sky Vector. What is Aspen? KASE? Yeah, Aspen County. So they've got an RNAV, localizer DME. So let's pull up the localizer DME. See which one has the lower. There we go. So this is the RNAV GPS. So your minimum is down here, 10,200 MSL. So what is the airport elevation is 7,837, which means that you're probably, what's that, 3,000 foot minimums, 2,500 foot minimums, and 1 3/4 miles visibility. For Class C, which would be anything that's above 120 knots approach speed, that's 10,220 and 3 miles visibility. And Class D, you can't even land there. And what is the other one? The localizer DME. So the localizer actually has lower minimums, 9,840 and 3 miles, lower vertical minimums, and then longer visibility requirements. Class A 9,840, Class B 10,020, and C is the same. Yeah, but I mean, you can see, look here. So you start your approach at 13,400, and then your final approach fix is at DOIP at 11,700, which is 2, 3, 4, 5. So in 5 miles, you're descending about 3,000 feet, which was the let's see here. Glide slope angle is 3.5 degrees. Threshold crossing height 56 feet. Definitely not something that I would want to do in low visibility. I would have pieced out of there too. And it is not a comfortable feeling being an IMC in general, but particularly I would imagine if you know that there is significant terrain all around you, I probably wouldn't even try it. So I'm still looking around for this damn airport. Whoa. I would like to go to Aspen one day. That'd be cool. In VFR conditions, though. Like I said, I don't want to do that in IMC. Personally, Telluride is more appealing to me, but that's also an easier approach. I would believe it. Unfortunately, most crashes are pilot error. Yeah, you know, even the places that don't have super high definition orthos still look pretty good in there. Guys, I'm not that shit at flying helicopters. It's just hard to land this thing with the wind and the weight. And I definitely almost got a VRS crash here. We lost the generator right there. Generator failure. Are you trying to Telluride? So when the rotor RPMs drops below 85%, the generator goes out. So right there when I got into a little bit of VRS, and then when I got back into like normal air, it bogged the rotors down, which slowed down the RPMs. So if you ever hear that, it means I almost died. It'd be cool if these, like that IL-76 was a flyable thing in the game. Fast forward. It's true, I'm surprised. I've made this whole thing. And the track has, so far, it looks like it's stayed pretty spot on. class landing. Good luck finding that airport, though. Jesus. Bye. We'll just ballpark it this way. Hey, there it is. And I almost had a VRS crash with this one, too. The funny thing is, so one of the... I play this game with two of my instructors, one of whom was... he started as a commercial helicopter pilot. He has the same problems. It's a hard helicopter to fly. But he's the one that generally told me how to stay out of VRS. It's just hard to do. There it is. Looks like blood. Sky bleeding. Yeah, I lost the generator here too.
Отказал второй генератор. Отказал второй.
When the generator goes out, the stability augmentation system goes out as well, so I learned the hard way, you need to bind a button on your throttle or your stick to turn that back on. It's hard to look back down and find it and reactivate it. I need to find an Mi-8 pilot to tell me what that red stuff is. Land a plane with the engines out? Yeah. I mean, one of the things, the maneuvers that we have to do for a commercial pilot's license is a power out 180 that simulates doing that. Like it simulates your engine going out in the downwind portion of your flight. And it's considered a precision maneuver, so you have to land within 200 feet of whatever spot you've picked out on the runway. Alrighty, boys, I'm gonna get out of here. Scott, thanks for hanging out, dude. Keeper as well, man, that was a good talk. Apologize if we get anybody blocked or banned. guy with the time, thanks for the follow. Doc Scotty, thanks for the follow. Hope you get to F14. Let me know what you think. We love you. We'll see you next time. Peace.